The first time Emily Dawson heard the screaming, she didn't move. It came from C block, echoing through the concrete corridors like something wounded trying to find its way out.
I won't rest
The other
until
women
the
in her
truth
cell
comes
didn't
out.
move either. They sat on their bunks, staring at nothing, breathing shallow breaths. One of them, Marcy, a lifer with graying hair and scars across her knuckles, met Emily's eyes for just a second. Then she looked away. Emily understood. In Coldwater Women's Correctional, some sounds didn't deserve witnesses. She'd been here 11 months. 11 months of learning which guards to avoid, which meals to skip, which silences meant danger and which meant survival. 11 months of keeping her head down, her mouth shut, and her story buried so deep she sometimes forgot it herself. But tonight something was different. The screaming stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Emily had learned to sleep with her eyes half open, a trick taught to her by an inmate who'd been shanked in her sleep 2 weeks after sharing that advice. Trust no one. See everything. React to nothing. Her cellmate, Rena, slept soundly on the bunk above her, snoring softly. Rena was 23, in for possession with intent to distribute, and still naive enough to believe the system might work in her favor. Emily didn't have the heart to tell her otherwise. The morning count came at 5:47 a.m. Guards walked the tiers, clipboards in hand, flashlights cutting through the dim pre-dawn light. Emily stood at her cell door, hands clasped behind her back, eyes forward. She'd perfected the art of being invisible while standing in plain sight. Officer Brennan stopped at her cell. He was a thick-necked man with dead eyes and a habit of lingering too long when he counted the women on D block. His gaze crawled over Emily like something with legs. "Dawson," he said, marking his clipboard. "Sir." He moved on. Emily exhaled. Rena dropped down from the top bunk, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You hear that last night?" "No." "Bullshit. Everyone heard it." Emily pulled on her prison-issue boots, lacing them slowly, deliberately. "Then everyone knows not to talk about it." Rena fell silent. She was learning. Breakfast was oatmeal that tasted like paste and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. Emily ate mechanically, eyes scanning the cafeteria. The usual hierarchies were in place. The lifers at the far tables, the gang-affiliated women near the serving line, the frightened newcomers clustered together like prey animals sensing wolves. And then there was Carmen Silva. Carmen ran D block. Not officially, of course. Officially, Warden Gretchen Holmes ran Coldwater. But in the hierarchy that mattered, Carmen's word was law. She was 41, serving 25 to life for second-degree murder, and she had the kind of cold intelligence that made even the guards uneasy. Carmen sat at her usual table, surrounded by her crew. She ate slowly, methodically, her eyes moving across the cafeteria like a predator counting her herd. When her gaze landed on Emily, it stayed there. Emily looked away first. Always look away first. "She's watching you," Rena whispered. "She's always watching someone. No, I mean really watching. Like she's deciding something." Emily's stomach tightened. In Coldwater, being noticed by Carmen Silva was like being circled by a shark. You might survive, but you'd definitely bleed. After breakfast, Emily reported to her work detail in the prison laundry. The air was thick with steam and the chemical smell of industrial detergent. She worked alongside 12 other women, feeding sheets and uniforms into massive washing machines, her hands raw from the heat and moisture. Officer Brennan supervised the laundry. He spent most of his time leaning against the wall, picking his teeth with a toothpick, watching. Emily kept her head down, her movements efficient. She'd learned that the best way to survive work detail was to be competent but not exceptional, visible but not memorable. At 10:15 a.m., the laundry door opened. Carmen Silva walked in, flanked by 2 of her crew, Tasha and Dee, both serving long sentences for violent crimes. They moved through the laundry like they owned it because in every way that mattered, they did. Officer Brennan straightened but didn't intervene. Nobody intervened with Carmen. Carmen stopped at Emily's washing machine. She stood there, silent, while Emily continued feeding sheets into the drum. The other women in the laundry went quiet. Even the machine seemed to hum lower. "Emily Dawson," Carmen said. Her voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "We need to talk." Emily's hands stilled. She didn't look up. "I'm working." "Officer Brennan, does Dawson have a bathroom break coming?" Brennan shifted his weight. For a moment, Emily thought he might push back. But Carmen's gaze swung toward him, and whatever she saw in his face, fear, self-preservation, corrupted complicity, made him nod. 5 minutes, he muttered. Carmen smiled. "That's all we need." The bathroom was a tile and concrete tomb that smelled of mildew and desperation. Carmen leaned against the sink, arms crossed, while Tasha stood by the door. Dee positioned herself near the stalls, cutting off any escape route. Emily stood in the center of the room, pulse hammering, face neutral. "You've been here almost a year," Carmen said conversationally. "Kept your nose clean. Didn't join up with anyone. Didn't make enemies. Smart." Emily said nothing. "But you're not invisible," Carmen continued. "You think you are, but you're not. I see you watching. I see you listening. I see you remembering." "I don't remember anything." Carmen pushed off the sink, closing the distance between them. She was shorter than Emily by 2 inches, but she carried a gravity that made her seem larger, denser, immovable. "Last night, C-Block. You heard it." It wasn't a question. Emily kept her face blank. "I heard screaming. That's all." "That wasn't just screaming, Emily. That was Keisha Morris dying." The name hit Emily like a fist. Keisha Morris. 29 years old. In for check fraud. Quiet. Harmless. Emily had seen her in the yard sometimes, reading paperback novels and staying out of everyone's way. "She was found in her cell this morning," Carmen said. "Suicide, they're calling it. Hung herself with a bedsheet." Emily's throat tightened. "That's terrible. It's also bullshit." Carmen's voice dropped to something colder, sharper. "Keisha didn't kill herself. She was murdered. And you and I both know who did it." Emily forced herself to meet Carmen's eyes. "I don't know anything. Officer Brennan was on duty last night. He was the last one to do rounds on C-Block before Keisha died. And 3 weeks ago, Keisha filed a complaint about him. Said he cornered her in the supply closet. Said he put his hands on her. Said he threatened her if she talked." The pieces clicked into place in Emily's mind: Brennan's dead eyes, his lingering stares, the way the system swallowed complaints like stones into a dark well. "Why are you telling me this?" Emily asked. Carmen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because I need someone to witness. Someone with a clean record. Someone the lawyers might actually believe if this goes to trial." "There's not going to be a trial. They ruled it suicide." "Not yet," Carmen said. "But I'm going to make sure there is. And you're going to help me." Emily shook her head. "I can't. I won't." "You will," Carmen said softly. "Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone in D-Block knows you're the reason Keisha's death gets swept under the rug. I'll make sure they know you could have spoken up and chose silence instead." "How long do you think you'll last after that?" Tasha cracked her knuckles. The sound echoed off the tile walls. Emily's pulse roared in her ears. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to write down everything you saw and heard last night. Every detail. Every timing. I want you to sign it. And when the time comes, I want you to testify. That'll get me killed." "Maybe," Carmen admitted. "But staying silent will definitely get you killed. The only question is whether you die for something that matters." Emily returned to the laundry shaking. Officer Brennan watched her with those dead eyes, and she wondered if he knew. If he could smell the fear on her like blood in water. That night, lying in her bunk, Emily stared at the ceiling and thought about Keisha Morris. She thought about the complaint that went nowhere. She thought about the system that was supposed to protect them but instead fed them to men like Brennan. She thought about her own silence. Emily had been convicted of embezzlement, a white-collar crime that should have earned her minimal time. But her lawyer was overworked and underpaid, and she'd been steamrolled through a plea deal she didn't fully understand. 18 months. That was the sentence. 9 months left if she kept her head down. 9 months of survival. That was all she had to do. But Keisha Morris didn't get 9 months. Keisha got a bedsheet and a closed case and a system that looked the other way. Emily closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her lids, she saw Keisha's face, imagined it really because she'd never looked at the woman long enough to memorize her features. In prison you didn't memorize faces. You memorized threats. "You awake?" Rena whispered from the top bunk. "Yeah." What did Carmen want? Emily hesitated. "Nothing. Just prison politics." "You're lying." "I know." Rena was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My cousin died in here 3 years ago. They called it suicide too. But her family knew better. The guards knew better. Nobody did anything." Emily opened her eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because whatever Carmen asked you to do, you should do it. Even if it's dangerous. Especially if it's dangerous." "That's easy to say when it's not your neck on the line." "My neck's been on the line since the day I got here," Rena said. "So has yours. The only difference is whether we die silent or whether we die loud." 3 days later, Emily was called to Warden Holmes's office. The warden was a severe woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. She sat behind a massive desk, hands folded, expression unreadable. Officer Brennan stood in the corner of the room. His presence made Emily's skin crawl. "Sit down, Dawson," Warden Holmes said. Emily sat. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her face neutral, her pulse screaming. "I understand you've been spending time with Carmen Silva," the warden said. "No, ma'am. I work laundry detail. She came through once. That's all. Don't lie to me. I have eyes everywhere in this facility." The warden leaned forward. "Silva is a dangerous woman. She's a manipulator. She uses people, and when she's done with them, she discards them. I'm telling you this for your own protection." Emily said nothing. Silva has been spreading rumors about Officer Brennan. Vicious, unfounded accusations designed to undermine the authority of this institution. "I won't tolerate it. And I won't tolerate inmates who enable her campaign of harassment." Emily's throat was dry. "I don't know anything about that, ma'am." "Good. Keep it that way." The warden sat back. "You have 9 months left on your sentence, Dawson. 9 months. If you stay out of trouble, you'll walk out of here and never look back. But if you involve yourself in Silva's vendetta, I'll make sure those 9 months stretch into 9 years. Do you understand me?" "Yes, ma'am." "You're dismissed." Emily stood. As she reached the door, Brennan moved to open it for her. He leaned in close enough that she could smell coffee on his breath. "Smart girl," he whispered. Emily walked back to D Block on legs that felt like water. That night, Carmen found her in the yard during rec time. The yard was a rectangle of cracked asphalt surrounded by chain link and razor wire. Women walked the perimeter in groups or sat on benches or played cards at metal tables. Guards watched from towers. Carmen sat down beside Emily on a bench near the fence. She didn't look at her. "They got to you," Carmen said. "Yeah." "Threatened you?" 9 months. That's what I have left. They said if I help you they'll add 9 years. Carmen nodded slowly. "That's how they operate. Fear. Leverage. Control." "I can't do it," Emily said. "I'm sorry. I can't." Then Keisha Morris died for nothing. Emily's hands clenched into fists. She died because of him. Not because of me. No. She died because people like you stay silent. She died because everyone looks away. She died because the system counts on good people deciding their survival matters more than the truth. That's not fair. Fair? Carmen laughed, bitter and sharp. Nothing about this is fair. Keisha was in here for writing bad checks. She was trying to feed her kids. She didn't deserve what Brennan did to her. She didn't deserve to be erased. Emily closed her eyes. She thought about her own daughter, 6 years old, living with Emily's mother on the outside. She thought about missing another birthday, another Christmas, another year of watching her baby grow up through phone calls and supervised visits. "I have a kid," Emily said quietly. "If I lose these 9 months, I lose her. My mom can't keep taking care of her forever. The state will take her. She'll end up in foster care. I won't let that happen." Carmen was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. "I have 2 kids. They're teenagers now. I haven't seen them in 8 years. Their father told them I'm dead. It was easier that way." Emily looked at her. "I'm sorry. Don't be. I made choices. I live with them." Carmen turned to face her directly. "But I'll be damned if I let another woman die in here without someone fighting for her." Keisha didn't have kids to protect. She didn't have anyone. The only thing she had was the truth. And I'm not letting them bury it. Then find someone else. There is no one else. You were on D Block. You heard the timing. You can place Brennan on the tier. Without you, there's no case. Emily stood up. "I can't help you." Carmen stood too. "Then you're just like every other person in here who's decided survival means complicity. Congratulations, Dawson. You'll walk out of here in 9 months with your clean record and your daughter waiting. And every time you look in the mirror, you'll see Keisha Morris staring back." Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bunk, staring at the underside of Rena's mattress, listening to the sounds of the prison, coughing, crying, whispered conversations, the clang of metal on metal. At 2:37 a.m., she made her decision. She climbed down from her bunk, pulled out the small notebook she kept hidden in her pillowcase and began to write. She wrote about the screaming. She wrote about the timing. She wrote about Officer Brennan's rounds, his lingering presence on C Block, the way the screaming had stopped so suddenly it was like someone had flipped a switch. She wrote about Keisha Morris, a woman she'd never spoken to, who tried to survive in a system designed to consume people like her. When she was finished, her hand was cramping and her face was wet with tears. She hadn't realized she was crying. In the morning, she folded the pages and slipped them under Carmen Silva's food tray in the cafeteria. Carmen didn't acknowledge her, didn't nod, didn't smile. But Emily knew she'd seen it. 3 weeks later, the investigation began. It started with lawyers, real ones, not the overworked public defenders who shuffled through Coldwater like ghosts. They interviewed inmates. They pulled records. They requested surveillance footage. Officer Brennan was placed on administrative leave. Emily was called to testify. She sat in a small room with lawyers and a court reporter and told the truth. She described what she'd heard, when she'd heard it, where Brennan had been. Brennan was arrested 2 days later. Emily waited for retaliation. She waited for guards to target her, for inmates loyal to Brennan's protection racket to come after her. She waited for the system to find a way to punish her for speaking up. Instead, nothing happened. The days passed. Emily worked her laundry detail. She ate her meals. She counted down her remaining months. But something had shifted inside her. The silence she'd carried for 11 months, the survival instinct that told her to stay invisible, to protect herself above all else, had fractured. She'd spoken. And she was still alive. Emily walked out of Coldwater Women's Correctional on a gray morning in March. Her mother waited in the parking lot, her daughter holding her grandmother's hand. Emily dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms, breathing in the smell of her hair, feeling the weight of her small body, alive and real in hers. "Mama," her daughter whispered. "You came back." "I came back," Emily said. As they drove away, Emily looked back at the prison one last time. It sat there against the flat horizon like a tomb, gray and immovable. She thought about Carmen Silva, still inside, serving her 25 to life. She thought about the women who would never walk out those doors. She thought about Keisha Morris, who'd filed a complaint and paid for it with her life. And she thought about the silence, the heavy, suffocating silence that prison demanded from everyone who entered. Emily had broken that silence. It had cost her sleepless nights and constant fear and the knowledge that survival sometimes meant choosing someone else's truth over your own safety. But Keisha Morris had a name now. She had a story. She wasn't just another suicide statistic in a system that crushed people like grapes and called it justice. Emily exhaled slowly, watching Coldwater disappear in the rearview mirror. Some costs she'd learned were worth paying. Even if you paid them in silence, that finally, brutally, became a scream.